Halito and welcome back everybody. This is CT over at the NYC Indian, and today we're going to be reviewing Married at First Sight, The Dark Side of the Honeymoon. This is going to be brought to you from an urban Native American Indian perspective, a mixed perspective, and a secular perspective. So let's dive right on in. So we wake up to Mark and Lindsey, and they seem to have gotten over their fight. They start talking about their different religious backgrounds and where they are with how they want to raise kids in regards to that. And I think this is at least one less thing that they have to worry about because they seem to be on a similar page. She's from a Greek Orthodox background. He's Christian. I don't know what kind of Christian. I mean, they're both Christian, so, right, there shouldn't be too much problem, I guess. So I think that in this particular experiment, things like that can be hurdles at times, like mixing people from different cultures and mixing people from different religions can be more challenging, right? So even though I would like to personally see more multicultural and multiracial relationships, I think what it comes down to people and their theistic beliefs or non-theistic beliefs, I think that those people need to be matched similar. You're not going to match an atheist with a snake handling Baptist from, I don't know, somewhere down, you know what I mean? It's just too extreme. The differences are too extreme. So I think at least in this particular situation, they are, they're matched in that particular area. So we'll see. We'll see how long this little honeymoon and this little bliss in their eyes lasts. So I'm not sure. So the next disturbing scene is with Katina and Olajuwon on this horseback ride adventure, and she's clearly uncomfortable. They're city kids. They said they don't know much about horses, and a horse is a large animal. Like if you guys weren't, raised around horses or never seen a horse in person, they're huge, okay? And it can be a scary thing if you're not used to them. And she's on the horse, and the horse is kind of going, she wants the horse is not going fast, but it to her it feels fast, and she wants it to slow down or just like to stop it. And he's kind of like yelling at her about how to hold the rein, and wasn't she listening and all this stuff. I mean, it was so, like, you could see she was so uncomfortable, and he's making it worse. Like he's trying to be like a I don't know, like some kind of equestrian coach or something like that. He's just yelling at her the whole time. And I thought to myself, man, this is like, again, a disturbing scene. I thought if I was her, man, as soon as I got off that horse, I would never even speak to him again. To feel so unsupported at a moment that you're very afraid. And, he goes back into his whole, I'm going to push you, I'm always going to push you kind of thing. And I was like, oh my God. Listen, I know Katina is like, hopefully she's taking, the red flags are there. Hopefully she's taking notes, okay? She seems to be like, very willing, kind of loyal, like I'm just gonna, really, really try and make it work kind of type of person, or at least for this particular experiment or experience, this marriage. But I think that kind of wherewithal and stick-to-itiveness is not, it's not working in this situation. She's not going to benefit from that because he can't control his mouth. I don't even know where his mind is at, but he cannot control his mouth. And what happens when something really devastating happens to her and she doesn't have that support? So he just seems more of a person that is slightly a berating kind of personality versus a kind, warm, the thing is with him, he talks and he talks and he talks, and he's going to be this, he's going to be the greatest this, and he just it's just all talk, right? There's no action behind it. And for her, the small little gestures in between, I guess is like kind of enough to keep her like enamored. But she knows she's like, or we can see her kind of squirming at other moments, and I'm just wondering, is she taking that in, and is she taking notes, or is she just ignoring it? So like I said, I can see she has that loyal kind of thing. Because look, she's loyal to Alyssa. She's loyal to Jasmine. You can see when she feels like she's in a comfortable situation, she can be herself and be, and be comfortable and get close and form relationships with people. But that loyalty, I think, if she applies that too much towards Olajuwon, is going to get her in trouble. So now we're back with Chris and Alyssa, and basically because she's refused just about every activity except for the paddle boarding, the experts decide to intervene and set up like a third party little tennis match. So they start playing tennis or whatever, and when they're done, he begins to talk to her about moving in because it's almost time for them to move in together, and she doesn't want to move in, but he expects her to move in. And see, this is part of the problem. While I definitely feel like she has been absolutely nasty to him, for sure, absolutely, there's no excuse for her behavior, he needs to take a little bit of responsibility as well for himself in terms of standing up for himself and saying, you know what, that's enough. You're gonna be nasty to me like that, I'm out of here, right? I mean, this whole, I'm willing to take the 1%, even if she's just willing to give me 1% of herself, come on. You got to have some sort of self-esteem, because to be with someone, let's say she did change her mind and eventually gravitated towards you after being that nasty. I know some of you guys are starting to think, Doug and Jamie, yes, that wasn't good, but Alyssa's a different level. I'm sorry, that's totally different level. And Alyssa, even if she were to come around to him, let's say she started to, fall for him. Well, now you got to wonder in the back of your mind, like, man, she treated me so poorly in the beginning, how will she always be there for me? You have a doubt in your mind. So who would want to be with someone like that, who's going to treat them that way to begin with? You know what I mean? So you have to know your own worth. At that age, in your 30s, you got to know who you are. You got to know your name, okay? And that means not being with people like Alyssa, whether it's through a dating app, somebody introduced you to her, or even through a blind marriage experiment like this. You just have to know when to cut it off. I mean, so of course she gets all upset because he's talking to her. She's just allergic to, the sound of his voice or something. So of course she starts crying, and she goes over to production, and she's really upset, and she's talking about, look at him over there, look at his hand gestures. He's just so aggressive. And I was aggressive? Like what? Production was like, what is he doing with his hands? I mean, apparently he was throwing gang signs or something because he was being so aggressive towards her. And, he's talking down to her because she's a woman. Come on, listen, I am the feminist of all feminists when it comes down to men treating women well, but this is not that kind of situation. You can't say that he's oh, he's treating me, I'm a woman and he's treating me so terribly and stuff like that. You are the aggressor in this situation, okay? You're the one that is behaving in a way where it's completely inappropriate. I'm not saying she's gonna hit him or something, but all the crying and all that stuff, and making him see, come on, it's too much. So now we have a double date with Jasmine and Mike and Katina and Olajuwon, and they start talking about their different struggles that they're having thus far. And Mike, and Jasmine, their communication styles are different. And then we get over to Katina and Olajuwon, and they're talking about what happened that day, or at least Olajuwon, as he's talking and talking. And then I was surprised he was so honest, how he was saying, he was pushing her. And I'm glad that Jasmine, she's the calm voice of reason. Now, I don't know if she'll be that same voice of reason within her own relationship, because sometimes we're better at giving advice than maybe taking it ourselves, whatever. But she does tend to come up with good advice. Many times she is that calm, rational voice, and I like that we have somebody like Jasmine this season. And the thing is that Jasmine is not fooling me. Jasmine, she works with children, okay? So she knows how to talk to Olajuwon. She just, in her very calm educator voice, is like, well, sometimes we, too much pushing can, push a person a little beyond. It's good to encourage and, to give someone a little bit of, a little nudge, but a push might be too much. And, and I thought, see, There you go. Yeah, that's how you do it. That's how you do it, right? And then Mike, is saying basically the same. Well, not quite the same thing. Mike is I think he feels the same way, but he's still trying to give Olajuwon the benefit of the doubt because that's his boy, you know what I mean? But he knows too that Olajuwon is just too much, and all that pushing is just gonna push her right out the door if she has any sense. Now we're still trying to figure that part out right now because I don't know. I feel like at this point he's given her enough red flags for her to be, like this with him, but we haven't quite seen that yet, so we'll see. So now we have Mark and Lindsey, and Mark's phone has been blowing up because apparently his landlady won't stop calling him, landlady slash second mom, who decides to rewrite his lease in the middle of his honeymoon and then writes the damn cats right out of the lease. I said, well, what? That is, wow. That's some kind of, love you showing to your adopted son. I mean, that's just awful. Some things you just don't do. So, Lindsey's upset about that, and she's upset for him because remember, she's very ride or die. And not only is she upset for him, but this will affect her as well because they're still trying to figure out how they're going to do their living situation, beyond the, if they say yes beyond the what is it, 2 or 8 weeks or whatever the amount of time it is before they have to decide on decision day. So, she's just like, you know what, listen, bring those cats. We'll figure it out. It'll be a complete chaotic situation, but I got you. And, she's in his corner and he has to learn how to take that help. And I like that he is still at the same time going, hey, it's not her responsibility. This is something that I have to do. This is my lease. I have to, take care of this situation. So, he's going to have to get that balance between being that really stand-up guy who's all about his responsibilities and stuff like that and still taking help from your wife. It'll take time because you still have to get to know one another and what each other's load can be and stuff like that. So I really enjoyed seeing a good positive moment with them because I'm so afraid that they're not going to stay together. And I know a lot of people have like a lot of issues with Lindsey. And listen, Lindsey definitely has a very slick mouth, okay? Lindsey can wind you up in a fight somewhere in public, but she's not a stupid woman, right? So, I mean, if she's flexible enough to change some things, at least tone it to a certain level, I don't know that she can, but if she can, then, why couldn't they work out, other than the fact that they have 5 cats? So I'm still not sure about them, you guys. I'm really not, but I really did like what I saw tonight. I just did. I'm a sucker. I don't know. I liked it. What did you guys think? So now we have Chris giving the rundown to his sister on a video chat, and he's basically telling her how horribly the whole thing is going. And the sister's like, after a while, at first the sister sounds a little bit surprised, but then as she hears more and more, she's like, oh, that kind of makes sense. Her mom says she's always crying and stuff like that. And I was like, oh my God, these families are just, always spilling tea. How did how did Alyssa's mother tell Chris's sister about Alyssa's behavior? I mean, when was that conversation happening? And anyway, of course, we pan over to Alyssa. Of course, she's crying and, saying what a horrible person he is. He's an arsehole and all this stuff like that. Listen, you guys, YouTube only allows you certain liberties with the swear words. And in my real life, I use quite a few. So we use some of the British and Irish words for, like shite and arse, just in case you're wondering, what an arsehole is. I think you can figure it out. So anyway, yeah, she goes, and she's like, I hate him. And it's like, I can understand you can't stand him because he's not your type. I mean, ladies, we can be honest. When somebody like makes our flesh crawl, we do not want that person like breathing down our neck and always be in there. So in some sense, I can feel for the situation where you're stuck with somebody that you don't want to be with. But, you know, you still have to have in your head like some kind of plan. Like, listen, okay, if I get to the altar and I just don't like this person, let me just, you know, I'll just kind of still be nice and, you know, don't make the person feel terrible or whatever. And then, you know, just on decision day say no. Or if it's just really, really that horrible, you know, like in this situation, then just like cut it off. So, you know, it's not that I can't be empathetic to her situation. It's just the way that she's going about doing it and calling herself this wonderful every five. Oh my God, listen, if there was a tagline this for this episode, for the past 2 episodes, it would be, I am a good person. I am a good person. Like, she just kept saying it over and over and over again. And I was like, how are you? What is that based off of? Because that's not what we're seeing. This is like absolute ridiculous behavior, and it's just it's repetitive, right? It's just the same thing every single scene with these two. So then now we go over to the scene where we have Katina and what's her name? Katina and Jasmine sit down with Alyssa, and they start talking, and Katina just gently basically calls her out. Look, you're not into him. We know you're not into him. That's how I feel, you know, and da-da-da-da. And, you know, basically she admits it, but she won't admit it to Chris, to his face, because she's just so concerned about how she's going to come off. But, you know, sister, that ship has sailed. I mean, it's across the Atlantic at this point. You already look terrible. You've said a lot of things, and this is not just production. You know, they play their games. I'm not like saying that they don't, but still, they can't force those words out of your mouth. You said what you said, right? I mean, come on. So yeah, listen, oh, I don't even know how we're going to finish this out. Do you think they're just going to, like, maybe once they get back to Boston, maybe just, she's probably just like never going to see him again? I mean, because on the what's it called, the after party, oh my God, listen, Chris was spilling some of his own tea. We'll get to that later. So now we have Mike and Jasmine at the waterfall, and you know, it's a beautiful setting, and you know, they seem to be getting along, and he wants to carve her name into, or carve initials like he saw someone else do, into the rock or whatever, and she's just kind of like, you know, I think that while they were having a nice moment, it feels like, you know, they're just kind of going with the flow at this point, or kind of going with the motions, I should say. It feels like they're kind of stuck. And I think that something that happened with that fight, when Jasmina said in that confessional, I'm done with him, I don't like the way he talks to me, and I don't want to be married to him anymore. I think she meant that. I really do. I don't see her changing. She just, to me, she's just got that kind of strong mind where she's just, you know, when she gets to that point, even if it's early on, she strikes me like she just would not, she's not, you know, not that she's not willing to give a person another chance, but I feel like in her heart, it's almost like a flower, like that's really bright and bloom and blossom. But then once it starts to wilt, like you can still try and put it back in the water, but it's still gonna basically die, you know, like, I don't know, unless you guys can revitalize your plants. I do not have a good green thumb, but I've never been able to revitalize mine. That's what it reminds me of. So, yeah, I'm not seeing so much progress this particular episode with these guys. You know, they're both kind of in their heads too much, I think, but you know, I keep saying it every week. I really just feel like those obstacles plus a lack of attraction just equal, plus, okay, let me take that back. Let me say a lack of attraction plus obstacles plus not having a lot of relationship experience in real time can kind of kill something. And oh, there's more to come though. Did you see those previews for next week, honey? So now everybody gets together and they're all talking about their different challenges and things, basically where they're at in their relationships at this point. So Mike starts saying how he needs to work on his communication style, and Olajuwon is saying how he realizes that he shouldn't be so pushy, but at the same time and in the same breath, he says he'll steamroll over anybody who's too passive. I was like, are we getting this? Okay, is everybody like, and then everybody starts talking about kids and things like that. And then this is when we get to really hear from Chris in a group setting and kind of get to learn a little bit more about his wants and desires. Not that Alyssa is concerned with any of that. And then it eventually goes into, how she feels for him and her lack of telling him how she feels. And he wants to know, like, kind of up front in front of everybody. And she's like, I'm not willing to have that discussion in front of everyone because, again, she doesn't want to look bad, or I should say look any worse, right? And then she just wants to avoid actually coming out and saying it. She doesn't want the camera catching her saying, I think he's ugly, even though she has said, he's not my type, he's not my type, he's not my type. But she doesn't say that to him, though. So then it escalates. Of course, again, she gets upset, she doesn't want to talk about it. And he says, well, every time I try to have this discussion with you, you always tell me you don't want to talk about it. And on the after party, they were talking about like the conversations that were going on, off camera. And he said that the conversations off camera were not getting anywhere either. She still just wouldn't really come out and say what she wanted, what she really feels. So now Chris reveals on the after party that when they had to go to the officiant to, get things signed and stuff like that, that when he he asked her for her telephone number, she wouldn't give it to him. No, they're married, okay? They're already married. She says, I know how to get in touch with you. It's like, damn. Listen, if that was not the biggest red flag for him in the beginning, there's no way after that happened. And that happened over in Boston. So there's no way that happened and then he should still be he should have never even gotten on a plane. You're not willing to give me your telephone number while we're legally married? Like, that was absolutely insane. And even the host of the after party was like, oh my God, like, are you serious? So, I mean, I feel like this whole situation kind of could have been avoided even earlier on. Because I'm like, you knew that early? But, he was still in that positivity mode that, don't give up, keep trying, maybe she'll come around mode or whatever. But, oh, Alyssa, girl, you have officially taken the cake this year. So her plan is that he moves into the apartment for half the time and then she moves in for the other half of the time. So basically 2 ships in the night, right? She doesn't want to stay with him. And he's just like, I'm not interested in that. I mean, why are you trying to do like the timeshare? Like, you can't timeshare your marriage. Just like, this is just getting to be so crazy. He's like, read either I want to know if you're all in or you're out. And your answer, Chris. So at this point, you kind of torturing yourself because you need to stop going up to her. You need to stop saying, where are you at in the you have to stop that. You need to stop. Because when somebody is absolutely not attracted to you, they've let you know in so many different ways, after a while, you start to look stupid. Just like, hang it up. When you're done, just get on the plane, go back to Boston. You can hook up with your friends once they fly back, and you'll have friends for life. They'll understand the process with you, right? And start working on that divorce and get yourself into some counseling because you obviously do not have enough backbone at this point. And I just have to say that because, I think having that kind of attitude, which he thinks is like a, go get him kind of attitude, is actually very detrimental because you will wind up with another Lindsey. You'll find another one, but maybe she'll be somewhat attracted to you, whatever, and she'll just take you for a ride. You have to know who you are in order to be a good partner for another person. And your backbone is not strong enough yet. You got to get that together. And, I don't know what kind of additional counseling Married at First Sight offers. I mean, it seems like they're not getting counseling at all. They always tell us after all of these catastrophes happen, these experts tell us later on, on these specials and things like that, that, they're there through the whole process, and they're aware when Chris treated Paige like this, and they were aware when, this was going on with this couple and that couple, and they were aware, with, what's his name, Zach and Michaela. But only like the first maybe, I don't know, 5 seasons, something like that, we used to see them regularly sitting down, regularly counseling with them. And it doesn't work when it's just once in a while. This is like a regular, this is a regular lab experiment, basically. I mean, they need so much support. And I think as fans, we feel very frustrated that we don't see the couples getting that, because, maybe if Alyssa had gotten a little counseling, she would have I don't know, but maybe she would have known to, like, at least not be so nasty. Maybe. I don't know. Maybe if she knew that she had to be accountable to discussing her feelings, and, maybe Olajuwon would, well, I don't think he can change. I think his situation is different. But I think, maybe Mike and Jasmine, people benefit, these couples benefit from having this sort of counseling. Maybe if, the counselor sat down every week with Lindsey and said, listen, you got to watch this, you got to watch that. And we're not going to be here for the rest of your marriage, but we're trying to help you build some foundations and maybe work on certain things that can, be a detriment to you, or the downfall, can lead to a no on decision day. They need that support. Where are these people? If they are too high paid and have other, ventures or whatever, and they can't make it to counseling sessions, and just get new people. Get people that can fly in and be there on vacation. Two they need to be there, like, on site. So when something goes completely wrong, they can, because it's such a small window in the beginning with 2 strangers. Because two perfectly good people can wind up going this way, like passing each other in their process, because, some one little thing. And, and little things later on can maybe not be so huge when you already have a better foundation of knowing that person, knowing their likes and dislikes, their communication styles, their past histories, their traumas, triggers, all these different things. That takes time, and they need support. Where are you people? Where are you? Mark and Lindsey are wrapping up the evening and having a conversation about what took place. And, they are very much in support of Chris, and they're vocal about it as well, especially Lindsey, of course, right? And Mark is very happy that in this particular situation where Lindsey was making some faces, we did see that. And when Alyssa was talking and basically making herself, out to be the victim, and Lindsey was making some faces in response to that, and Alyssa's like, trying to check her, and, Lindsey actually was like, I didn't say anything, and then just left it at that. Because at that moment, we did not know if it was about to go off, right? And Mark was happy that she responded that way. And she said on the after party that under the table, she was just like grabbing Mark's arm, like really tightly, like, please, like, just like, cause she just didn't want to say anything, that was going to result into some big fight at the table. So, she can't control herself. All right. And I think there was alcohol there as well. So I think she can control herself in a situation where people are socially drinking as well. So we'll see. Let's hope, okay? And we'll see what happens with these guys next week. But I think between Mark and Lindsey and Steve and Noy, they seem to have had a pretty good episode this week. So let's see next week if there's any more progress with any of the other couples. So we finish off the episode with Chris and Alyssa, and Chris is asking Alyssa for the 1,000th time, is she in or out? We already know the answer. I actually just need a mental break from this couple, seriously. So then we go to Olajuwon and Katina, and they are both expressing some reluctance about moving in with one another, and I think that's very healthy because, like I said from the very beginning, I do not think that they should be together. And hopefully this is the beginning of the bifurcation of the relationship. We shall see. I can only be, sitting there with my fingers crossed. But listen, did you all see the clip for next week's episode? Honey, oh my God. It is about to get very real on our little Lifetime network, okay? between Noy and Steve and the tears about the money, and Katina and Olajuwon, he's expecting her to be his cafeteria worker and sling out 3 meals a day, meanwhile looking good and smiling the whole time and trying to push her. And then we have Mark and Lindsey, they're gonna be like fighting again. And then, oh, Jasmine and Mike, did we know about this roommate? Listen, a lot to discuss next week. So get your favorite drinks, either libations or non-libations. Same place, same channel. Usually I put my videos out the next day after the show has been released. So Wednesday shows will come out on Thursdays and Sunday shows will come out on Mondays. I also do 90 Day Fiance before the 90 days and adopting adults. So if you guys are interested, check those out as well. Please take care of yourselves. Thank you for watching. Please stay safe and chipis alacho.